there, can we get real for a minute? Have you truly felt the heartbeat of San Francisco? Or did you just snap some photos and call it a day? In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to completely transform your travel experience. I'll show you the authentic San Francisco that you'll never find in any guidebook. Welcome to San Francisco. This breathtaking city with its winding hills, stunning coastline, and endless possibilities holds stories. For instance, did you know that in the golden mist of the Golden Gate, over 1,700 souls have vanished, making this iconic bridge the canvas for more final goodbyes than almost anywhere else on Earth? Join me today as we uncover the hidden stories behind San Francisco's iconic landmarks and transform your visit into an unforgettable journey. Today's San Francisco tour will guide you through the brightest gems of this pearl of the West. From the majestic Golden Gate Bridge overlooking the entire city from its hilltop, to Fisherman's Wharf, where vibrant fishing traditions still thrive, and finally to Alcatraz Island with its infamous reputation as escape-proof. This journey will take you beyond what 60 million annual tourists see. I'll make your trip extraordinary by revealing hidden spots and stories that only locals know. Are you ready to discover the real San Francisco? Let's get started. Picture this magnificent bridge before you right now. That reddish-orange metal emerging through the fog, with the rough Pacific waves crashing below. Did you know that this bridge we take for granted today was once considered impossible to build? The Golden Gate Bridge isn't just a means of transportation. It's a story of human will and determination overcoming nature's barriers. In the early 1900s, San Francisco was growing rapidly, but there was one major problem. To reach Marin County to the north, you had to take a ferry across. Engineers at the time claimed building a bridge at this location was impossible. The Golden Gate Strait was 1.6 kilometers wide, with strong currents, fog, and frequent earthquakes. The word impossible only means it hasn't been tried yet. This was the belief of Joseph Strauss, the designer of the Golden Gate Bridge. What's most shocking? This massive project began right in the middle of the Great Depression. In 1929, with the American economy collapsing, San Francisco citizens voted to issue $35 million in bonds to build this bridge. In the darkest economic hour, they chose to invest in a brighter future. Construction began in January 1933, and the work site was incredibly dangerous. Workers sometimes battled winds exceeding 60 miles per hour while working on steel structures 220 feet above the water. But there was a notable innovation here. The Golden Gate Bridge was the first construction project in history to install a safety net. This net saved 19 lives during construction, and these survivors earned a unique nickname, the Halfway to Hell Club. When we fell, it felt like landing on a giant net bed. We came back from death to life in an instant. This was the recollection of one surviving worker. One of the biggest challenges during construction was installing the massive cables. Each main cable consists of 27,572 individual wires, with a total length that could circle the Earth 3.5 times. To build the pylons, workers had to dig into the bedrock 100 feet underwater. For this, special pressure chambers called caissons were used, exposing workers to the dangerous condition known as the bends. Remarkably, by construction industry standards at the time, the 11 fatalities were considered fewer than expected. Back then, it was normal to expect one death per 1,000 workers when building tall structures. After 4 years, 3 months, and 4 days, the impossible dream became reality. On May 27, 1937, the Golden Gate Bridge officially opened, and more than 200,000 people walked across it to celebrate this historic moment. But do you know the fascinating story behind the bridge's famous color? Initially, the Navy proposed painting it black and yellow stripes like a battleship. Others suggested red and white stripes for airplane visibility. Luckily, consulting architect Irving Morrow proposed International Orange, which was chosen because it blended well with the surrounding environment while remaining visible in fog. Every year, millions of dollars are spent on paint maintenance alone. An interesting fact is that as soon as the bridge's paint job is finished, it has to start again. In other words, the painting never ends. 30 painters work around the clock to protect the bridge from salt and fog. The Golden Gate Bridge shows the perfect harmony between nature and technology. Its color harmonizes with the warm tones of the surrounding hills, while remaining clearly visible through fog. This was Irving Morrow's explanation. The evolution continued even after the bridge was completed. Today, the Golden Gate Bridge is more than just a means of transportation. It has become a symbol of human will and innovation. More than 10 million visitors come to this bridge annually, and over 40 million vehicles cross it. But this bridge is also a place of sadness as much as beauty and hope. Since its opening in 1937, more than 1,700 people have ended their lives here, making it one of the locations with the highest suicide rates in the world. In response to this tragic reality, a $30 million suicide prevention safety net was installed in 2018. Surprisingly, according to testimonies from the extremely few people who survived, jumping from the bridge, they immediately regretted their decision the moment they were airborne. I knew right away. All the problems I thought I wanted to solve were actually solvable. The only problem I couldn't solve was that I had just jumped. These are the words of Kevin Hines, a survivor. The Golden Gate Bridge gives us profound lessons. It shows that human will can overcome nature's barriers and that bold investments for the future are possible, even in the darkest economic times. For some, the Golden Gate Bridge symbolizes the wonder of engineering, but for others, it's a place of pain. One volunteer said, "We meet at least one suicide attempter on the bridge every week. To them, this bridge doesn't represent beauty, but a final exit. The next time you cross this magnificent bridge, I hope you'll see it not simply as a San Francisco landmark, but as evidence of the human spirit making the impossible possible." Take a moment to reflect. I bet there have been times in your life when you were told absolutely not. How did you overcome those moments? Or are you standing in front of one now? Share your Golden Gate moment in the comments. Your story might give someone else the strength they need. Let's head to where the locals go to satisfy their appetites. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button while we're on our way. Can you smell that salty sea air? Can you hear the seagulls mixed with people's laughter? We've arrived at San Francisco's most vibrant district, Fisherman's Wharf. As you walk through this bustling tourist destination with its famous seafood restaurants and cute shops, can you imagine that this space was originally the workplace of fishermen who were responsible for feeding the entire city? The story of Fisherman's Wharf goes back to the Gold Rush era. In 1849, Italian immigrant fishermen, primarily from Genoa, settled in this area to feed the thousands of people who flocked to San Francisco in search of gold. We would get up at 3 a.m. and head out to sea. Then we'd return to the dock in the morning to sell what we'd caught that day. It was a hard life, but it was the only life we knew. This is a recollection from an Italian fisherman who worked in this area during the 1930s. These fishermen, mostly from Genoa, used small fishing boats called feluccas to catch cod, salmon, herring, and Dungeness crab in San Francisco Bay. Imagine this scene before dawn. Hundreds of small lights dancing in the foggy harbor. Fishermen casting their nets, waiting for the day's luck. This was the daily routine at Fisherman's Wharf for a century. One of the most remarkable aspects of Fisherman's Wharf is its family-centered tradition. Genoese fishermen pass down their family secrets about fishing spots and techniques to their sons. And even today, there are families who have been doing the same work for 4 or 5 generations. The wharf where you're standing now has overcome historical challenges multiple times. The Great Earthquake and Fire of 1906 destroyed many buildings, but the fishermen soon rebuilt. A greater ordeal came during World War II. Italian fishermen were classified as enemy aliens, and many had their boats confiscated and were forbidden from going to sea. My father went out to sea every day for 45 years. Then suddenly, overnight, his boat and livelihood disappeared, just because of where he was born. A second-generation fisherman's daughter recalled. After the war, the fishing industry recovered but faced new challenges. In the 1950s and 60s, large commercial fishing vessels emerged, threatening small family fishing operations, and environmental regulations limited catches. Amid these changes, the fishermen had to adapt. And in the process, Fisherman's Wharf began to gradually evolve into something different. As traditional livelihoods were threatened, new opportunities began to emerge. By the 1970s, Fisherman's Wharf was gradually transforming into a tourist attraction. Ghirardelli Square, with its Ghirardelli Chocolate Factory, opened in 1964, and Pier 39 opened its doors in 1978. Tourists helped us survive, but sometimes it felt like we were exhibits in a zoo. As one elderly fisherman put it, many traditional fishermen had mixed feelings about these changes. As tourism replaced traditional fishing, the area prospered economically, but had to sacrifice part of its cultural identity. However, even amid these changes, the fishermen preserved their traditions. Today, Fisherman's Wharf represents a unique harmony between past and present. If you visit early in the morning, you can still see fishermen drinking coffee, preparing for the day's work, and you can buy freshly caught seafood. The Fisherman's Wharf fishing fleet is still active, and there are stalls selling their Dungeness crabs. Locals still come here to taste the freshest seafood. One must-visit place is Aliotto's restaurant, established in 1965. The founder, Nunziata Aliotto, started the restaurant on her own after her husband died early. Initially a small lunch stand for fishermen, it later became one of the most famous seafood restaurants in the city. Perhaps the most famous residents of Fisherman's Wharf aren't people at all. They're the hundreds of sea lions gathered at Pier 39. An interesting fact is that these sea lions suddenly appeared after the Loma Prieta earthquake in 1989. Scientists still don't fully understand why they chose this particular location. This amazing natural adaptation seems to symbolize the transformation of Fisherman's Wharf itself. What was once a workspace for immigrants has now become a cultural melting pot where visitors from all over the world gather. Fisherman's Wharf isn't just a tourist destination. It's a living testimony to immigration, family traditions, and how a city adapts to changing economic realities. It's also where San Francisco's multicultural identity is most clearly revealed. When you walk through Fisherman's Wharf, you're not just seeing shops and restaurants. You're seeing the stories of generations of families who made their living from the sea. And you're seeing how San Francisco has developed into a modern city while preserving its past. Next time you visit, wake up at dawn to watch the fishermen return. And while tasting a Dungeness crab sandwich, think about its journey from sea to table. It's not just a meal, it's tasting the history and culture of this city. Does your hometown have places where tradition and modernity coexist? Share your experiences in the comments. Now, shall we cross the waters of San Francisco Bay to the infamous place known as The Rock? Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button while we're on our way. Look at this small, desolate island before you. It may look like just a rock, but for those imprisoned here, it was their entire world. A place where the freedom we take for granted was desperately needed. Take a moment to imagine, what if it were you? Alcatraz is not just a prison. It's a historical place that reflects philosophical changes in the American justice system. This rocky island, 125 miles from San Francisco Bay, was originally considered by Native Americans to be a place where evil spirits live. And Spanish explorers named it Alcatrazes, meaning Pelican Island. In 1853, the U.S. Army built a fortress at this strategic location that eventually developed into a military prison. But it wasn't until 1934 that it became the notorious federal penitentiary we know. America needed a new era of law and order. Alcatraz was the symbol of that message. As the first warden, James Johnston, said, with the rise of organized crime during the Great Depression and Prohibition era, the government desperately needed an escape-proof facility to house infamous criminals like Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, and the Birdman Robert Stroud. Alcatraz was already a perfect prison just by its natural elements. Surrounded by cold, fast-moving bay waters, anyone attempting escape was almost certainly destined to drown. The prison authorities cruelly ensured that inmates could see the lights of San Francisco, constantly reminding them of the freedom they could never have. The maximum capacity was just 336 inmates, with typically only about 260 incarcerated at any time. But its psychological impact was enormous. A laboratory for isolation and psychological torture. The real punishment of Alcatraz was isolation. Disconnection from the world, disconnection from family. As recalled by a former inmate, prisoners here could only meet visitors once a month, and all conversations were strictly monitored. Through the small windows of the dining hall, they could see people freely enjoying themselves in San Francisco, just 1.6 kilometers away. The cruelest torture was this nearby freedom. Alcatraz wasn't just for the worst violent criminals, it also housed inmates who broke rules or caused trouble in other prisons. The rules here were simple. No rights, only privileges. The most famous incident at Alcatraz was the escape attempt in 1962. Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers executed an elaborate plan. They placed papier-mâché dummy heads in their beds to fool the guards, escaped through ventilation ducts, and tried to cross the bay on improvised rafts. The FBI officially concluded that they drowned in the cold waters, but decades of witness, testimonies and circumstantial evidence suggest they might have actually succeeded. This mystery continues to stimulate many people's imaginations. Surprisingly, Alcatraz's prison history ended after just 29 years in 1963. Operating costs were 3 times higher than other prisons, and the buildings were severely corroded by salt water. But Alcatraz's story didn't end there. In 1969, about 100 Native American activists occupied the island and declared it all Indian land. This occupation lasted for 19 months and became an important civil rights moment for Native rights. By occupying Alcatraz, we showed the world that we are not invisible people, said John Trudell, one of the occupation leaders. In 1973, the island came under the management of the National Park Service, and today, Alcatraz welcomes over 1.5 million visitors annually. What visitors admire is not simply the criminal history, but the philosophical changes in the American justice system. One reason Alcatraz closed was the changing thoughts about criminal justice in the 1950s and 60s. Rehabilitation and education began to be emphasized over strict punishment and isolation. Today, when you visit Alcatraz, you can experience the true value of freedom while walking through the iron bars and narrow corridors. In D Block's isolation cell, the Hole, you can feel the weight of time that inmates spent in complete darkness. The story of Al Capone, Alcatraz's most famous inmate, is particularly noteworthy. Once the gangster king of Chicago, he spent his last few years here becoming increasingly mentally unstable, eventually playing the banjo in his cell while reminiscing about past glory. Alcatraz was a place that broke people, not physically, but mentally. As Jim Quinn, who was incarcerated for 4 years, said, "This was a place that tested the limits of the human spirit." A little-known fact is that the families of guards actually lived on this island. About 300 civilians, mostly wives and children of guards, lived here with apartments, a school, and even a bowling alley and soda fountain. A guard's daughter later recalled, "To us, Alcatraz wasn't a scary prison. It was our playground, our home." Alcatraz makes us think deeply about the value of freedom and the humanity that exists even in cruel environments. Visitors often say they feel a new appreciation for freedom when leaving the island. Next time you're in San Francisco, take the ferry to Alcatraz. As you walk around the island, stand in the narrow cells and look at the free city through the windows. Remember that you'll only spend a few hours there, but inmates spent years, sometimes decades. What are your thoughts on freedom and confinement? How do you think society should treat criminals? Share your thoughts in the comments. Today we've explored the amazing stories hidden behind San Francisco's iconic landmarks. From the story of the Golden Gate Bridge that made the impossible possible, to the generations-old traditions of fishermen at Fisherman's Wharf, and the complex history of freedom and confinement locked away on Alcatraz Island. The true meaning of travel isn't simply visiting tourist spots, but knowing the stories behind these places. Speaking of Alcatraz reminds me of another legendary American city, Chicago, the city of Al Capone and the gangster heyday. It's also full of hidden stories you'll never find in any tourist guidebook. From secret speakeasies of the Prohibition era to the underground tunnel network, is Chicago on your travel bucket list? Or have you already been there? What Chicago secrets are you most curious about? Let me know in the comments, and I'll include your questions in the next video. Your curiosity becomes our next journey. In the next video, I'll reveal all of Chicago's hidden history and secret places.
Even when the clouds roll in, there's beauty hiding deep within. Find the spark, ignite the fire. Lift yourself a little